Remember when we dragged millions of heavy glass boxes out to the curb? We didn't throw away analog TVs because the picture looked bad. We threw them away because the infrastructure that kept them alive was turned off. The government mandated a complete transition to digital broadcasting. Almost overnight, the invisible analog signals that fed these machines for decades vanished. Without a built-in digital tuner, an older TV was instantly reduced to displaying static. Keeping one alive meant buying and wiring up extra hardware to translate the new digital signals. Most people took the easier route. They dumped the massive sets, some weighing close to 200 pounds, and bought the newly available flat-screen TVs instead. The convenience of hanging a thin screen on a wall dominated the conversation. No one compared the native picture quality or motion clarity of the old tubes against the early flat panels. Thinness won. The cathode ray tube was killed by convenience and changing infrastructure. That mass execution left behind a permanent gap in how we process and display legacy media, which makes today's reality so strange. Those heavy, discarded boxes are experiencing a massive surge in demand. Enthusiasts are hunting down very specific models, the late-era flat-screen CRTs. This graph plots the value of CRTs. The price plummeted to near zero by 2009 as everyone gave them away. By 2024, pricing skyrocketed. A 14-inch Toshiba commands $300, and a 20-inch Sony Wega lists at almost $900. You have to ask yourself, is it actually worth paying a massive premium to bring a 100-pound aging box back into your home? To answer that, we have to ignore the nostalgia. We need to brutally evaluate the exact technical trade-offs to determine if paying this analog tax makes sense for you. Let's start with the hardware driving this trend. A flat-screen CRT comes from a brief era, where televisions featured a completely flat front glass, but still relied on a massive analog tube stretching out the back. What makes them valuable is their native analog signal processing. This diagram shows exactly how that works. On top, an old console sends an analog wave, and an electron gun instantly draws the image on the glass. On the bottom, a digital TV captures a wave, buffers it through a processor, and then displays it, creating a delay. That instant analog process also delivers perfect motion clarity. Because the glowing phosphors naturally fade the exact millisecond they are drawn, a moving object on a CRT stays sharp, while a digital screen introduces blur. You pay a severe physical price for that performance. These televisions demand serious desk depth and regularly weigh up to 150 pounds. Then there is the financial reality. You are handing over premium prices for hardware that comes with zero warranty. They also carry a terminal flaw. The electron tubes inevitably degrade over time, and the factories that made the replacement parts are long gone. The flat-screen CRT offers unmatched frame-perfect authenticity, but to get it, you have to sacrifice an immense amount of physical space for a dying monolith. If you want analog-like qualities but refuse to deal with the bulk of a CRT, there is an alternative: high-end, early plasma displays. Plasmas are prized for a specific visual outcome. They produce incredibly deep black levels that rival or beat the best CRTs. They also solve the main physical problem. You gain a flat form factor that easily mounts to a wall. However, they introduce new trade-offs. They consume massive amounts of power, run hot, and because they still process a digital image, they lack the true zero-lag timing of an analog tube. They also carry the long-term risk of parts scarcity when their internal lighting elements eventually fail. Plasma serves as the ultimate middle ground. It delivers cinematic contrast and a flat profile, provided you accept higher power bills and slight input lag. The default path for most people is simply plugging an old console or VCR directly into a modern 4K LCD or LED flat panel. The mechanical friction here is that a dense digital pixel grid simply cannot natively understand a low-resolution 240p or 480 analog signal. This diagram demonstrates the mandatory digital process called upscaling. The television takes a small, low-resolution grid and stretches it to fill a massive 4K grid. The software has to literally invent pixels, guessing the colors for all the empty space. The visual trade-off is immediate blurriness. The edges of the image become fuzzy and distorted, introducing artifacts and destroying the sharpness of the original artwork. That mathematical guessing process takes milliseconds to compute.
This computation introduces an input lag that ruins older interactive media. Relying on a modern LCD's built-in processing is highly convenient, but it breaks both the original visual intent and the precise timing of legacy media. To figure out which path makes sense, let's look at this decision tree. First question, are you playing mixed modern media or pure retro gaming? Consider the nostalgic generalist. They remember old media fondly, but have a low tolerance for physical bulk. Do not spend $400 on a heavy eBay CRT. The physical burden of moving and storing it will instantly kill the nostalgia. Your specific solution is to invest in a dedicated, high-quality, modern digital upscaler. This external hardware processes the image correctly and fixes the lag on your current flat panel. Then there is the home theater optimizer. This viewer wants cinematic performance across a mix of media eras and heavily values deep black levels. For the optimizer, a late-era Pioneer or Panasonic Plasma provides the perfect bridge between modern form factor and legacy contrast. Finally, we reach the retro purist. This path is for pure retro gaming, featuring high tolerance for bulk and an absolute demand for zero lag. If frame-perfect inputs and native analog scan lines are non-negotiable for you, the high financial cost of a vintage CRT is mathematically justified. But you must have the dedicated physical space and the actual physical strength to house a 100-pound piece of glass to achieve that flawless timing. The analog era is permanently dead. It has been completely severed from our modern digital ecosystems. Analog hardware remains the only true way to experience analog media. Just make certain you are buying a tool you are prepared to wield, and not just a heavy